Hi everyone, Sajid Amit here, and welcome to my review of the one and only Campfire Supermoon Planar Magnetic IEM from Campfire, accented beautifully with these orange sort of bits at the end of the IEM jack, and of course the 2-pin connectors, and also aesthetically matched by these final Type E tips, which are also orange, which not just because of aesthetic consistency, but these sound great. And with a lovely box that looks like a box of sweets or chocolates. In my part of the world, this would be a box of mithai, which essentially means a box of sweets. And it sounds wonderful for connoisseurs of sound, and I definitely think so, from Portland, Oregon and all that. But a very minimal packaging. I'll talk about the packaging in a bit. So these are unique IEMs, guys, and it's not often that I get an IEM for review and I can't take them off my ears, because I took this to my bed last night and I was listening to them until I fell asleep because I just couldn't get enough. Disclaimers, I'm someone who is more of a bass head than a mid head, and I'm a bit of a treble head. Okay, so it's a bit interesting. I like all parts of the frequency spectrum. It's a deal breaker for me, first and foremost, if it doesn't do bass well, if it doesn't have bass impact, visceral impact, decay, realism, naturalness, etc. If it's too dry in the mid bass and doesn't have enough mid bass, etc. So I'm a big stickler for bass. I mean, disclaimer alert, this is a wonderful bassy IEM for a lot of you bass first listeners. Tip sensitive, yes. Do not use the stock tips. I'll talk more about tips later. Okay, guys, this is a slammy IEM. Slammy IEM. I'll just quickly jump into my discussion of what it sounds like and, overall, then I'll take you guys through the frequency response. Now, I'll talk a bit about this tonal performance and all that, right? So very quickly, in case you just want to get very quick impressions of what this sounds like, playing Audio Slave's Show Me How to Live. From here, I fell in love with this track all over again. I used to love this track in 2005 when I was in graduate school in London. Man, I mean, goosebumps all over again. It just, this kick, the thud of the kick drum is just phenomenal. The sub bass here is just phenomenal. I mean, when planar IEMs or headphones get sub bass right, like the BIS AB1266 5TC, they just hit it out of the park. And this does the same. It's a slammy IEM with a lot of sub bass kick and authority. And I do think the tips have a part to play here. I'll talk about that. Imaging is well separated. The drum hits are awesome because you get these fast, successive drum hits, and it's just blissful to experience the speed, distinctness, and tactility of the bass notes. The bass I can't stop raving about. Like I said, it's got speed, great separation of notes, which gives it texture, and a tactility and solidity to the notes, right? So it's just wonderful. Now, vocals are ever so slightly thin because it doesn't have as much mid bass as, let's say, a Bonneville, which I reviewed here on this channel already, so check that out. But it's not like Chris Cornell starts to sound like Lady Gaga, right? I mean, it's not like you're going to sound unnatural. It's not like an artist you like is going to sound unlike himself or herself, but it's not as thick. Technicalities are amazing on this. When the planar bass gets going, it can be a sight, not a sight. It can be simply oral delight. Now, I also played Live and Let Die by Guns N' Roses, and, it's a pretty famous song from the Use Your Illusion 1 album. I grew up with this, guys. So you see a wonderful way in which the images pan in front of you as the drumsticks hit each drum. Wonderful stuff going on. I also played Save Me by Amy Mann, which is a wonderful female vocals kind of a track, which I highly recommend. If you have not listened to this, it's a wonderful, wonderful track. It is astonishing how well it replays female vocals. It has pinna gain, and I think more pinna gain than the Bonneville does. The vocal inflections, and it's just phenomenal. It sounds intimate, guys. Okay, now a lot of you will know about Ken Ball and his starting Campfire in 2009, and the wonderful stuff they've done. This is a part of their more recent chromatic series, which are typified by very colorful tunings and colorful sort of accents, and you can get these faceplates in a different color, orange, for example, if you wanted to. And I got mine in black. It's got stainless steel here, so that is basically what the series is about. This is the only planar magnetic IEM of that series and of Campfire Audio's lineup. And like I said in my review, my review title, this is the best planar magnetic IEM around. And before I finish, I will talk a bit about its comparison with, let's say, other planar magnetics that are expensive, especially the Odyssey LCD i4, which I've happened to own and I've reviewed on this channel in the past. Okay, guys, it's not difficult to drive. It's got 15 ohms of impedance and 94 dB of sensitivity. Like I said, the mids are very resolving. They sound emotive, not emotionless at all, despite the fact that it doesn't have a lot of, I think, lower mid-range. Treble, as you might have figured out, does have a sense of sparkle and clarity. It does have sort of this sort of Stax-like treble, and I do think it does come out in the graph as well. You do check out the Elise Audio graph that I think is available on SquickLink, also available on the HeadFi reviews. There's a graph that compares the performance of this tonally with the Oriolus Tralee, and you'll see that the way it improves upon the Tralee is that it has more sub-bass in the Tralee. It has a little more pinna gain than the Tralee, and thankfully it does have more treble, especially in the 8 to 10 kilohertz range, more than the Tralee. And you have to understand that treble in the 8 to 10 kilohertz range might be not audible for you because depending on your ear anatomy, they might get pushed back by, let's say, 10 to 12 kilohertz, right? So in that sort of range, you don't often get the treble sharpness that you might get with lower and mid treble. I mean, instead, you get a sense of space and sparkliness, and a lot of Stax headphones are like that, so it does have that sort of a treble. So overall, fantastic tuning, guys. Fantastic tuning. That's a tonality for you. And technical performance-wise, guys, I mean, because it's just one planar, a 14mm planar, I mean, it does sound very coherent. It sounds extremely coherent. There's no sort of phase issues as such. It sounds coherent and slammy, like I said. So it's got wonderful macro dynamics. Resolution is top class. It rivals IEMs like the Z1R for resolution. It's just a step below the Z1R in resolution. The Z1R from Sony is, of course, $1,700. This is $1,100 at the time of filming this video. So it's $600 less than the Z1R. This is at the same price range as the Helios, and I would take this to the Helios any day because the Symphonium Helios, although wonderful, I do think is brighter and even more sensitive to tip rolling. And this has a far heftier bass, a far more fun bass, a far more delectable bass. I would take this to the Sony IR M9 also because this has better bass than the IR M9. The M9 sounds very narrow. Now, this is not the widest soundstage, but it's fairly wide. It's not as wide as a Bonneville. It's not as wide as a Helios, but it's wider than the M9, and I think it's sufficient. So with V-shaped tunings like this, it's often difficult to get a very wide soundstage, but this is not at fault. I mean, for soundstage, if you know what I mean. Lastly, compared to the Sennheiser IE900, this is not as V-shaped, so its mid-range is not as recessed, and it's not as thin sounding. So when I talked about how its vocals don't sound extremely thick, this is not in the same league or territory of thinness as the IE900. So it sounds more full than the IE900. So that's that. And I would take this to the IE900, guys. So this would be the best planar on the planet for me. Because although the Odyssey LCD i4 is a masterclass in technical performance, I dare say, well, perhaps one of the most technical IEMs on the planet, the i4 has the strangest tuning in the world, and its form factor being very open back sounding, where it doesn't really, and it's very difficult to take an i4 out on a walk. You know what I mean? So it defeats IEM sort of a portable purpose. So when I took the i4 out on a walk, the LCD i4, there were times when I was missing parts of the frequency spectrum. A, because the tuning is very strange, and B, because I was getting a lot of noise from around me when I was walking in the park. So for those reasons, for reasons of more traditional form factor, a better tonality, I would take this over the LCD i4, although the Odyssey LCD i4 at a far more expensive price point is more resolving. That, I think, is around $2,500, so 2.5 times more expensive than this. However, I still think this is a better IEM overall. Guys, tip rolling. Please use the final Type E tips. If you use the foam tips that it comes with, it sounds lean and dry and thin and doesn't have bass impact. If you switch over to the wider bore silicone ear tips that it comes with, in this lovely box, it sounds slightly less thin, so you get more bass heft, and I think you lose a bit on clarity, but it doesn't sound as much fun as this can and does on the final Type E tip. The Type E tips compromise clarity just a wee bit, which is fine because it does have a whole bunch of pinna gain, so you can afford to compromise a bit of clarity. but you get a substantial more bass heft. And for that, I love the Final Type E tips, and it's more listenable on longer sessions with, I think just a smoother treble, better bass impact, and, just overall less fatiguing. So these are the tips that you get with this IEM, and you get this, color matched pouch. This has a very famous Campfire mesh pouch inside, which can house your shells if you wanted to take those out and all that. So it's right here. And then, of course, it has a cleaning cloth, and it's got a cleaning tool and all that. So that's it, guys. That's the Campfire Supermoon for you, and these are the best planar magnetic IEMs on the planet for me. However, as always, be advised to do listen and audition for yourself before making a purchase decision. Sajid Amit signing out, and I hope this was useful. If this was, like my video, follow my channel, and I'll see you in my next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.